Welcome to SEPSA Talk. I am Evan Sapia Kisi, the host of SEPSA Talk. SEPSA is Center for Better Society Advocacy and Research Africa. SEPSA Africa is a non-profit organization that believes in a better society for all. We in SEPSA Africa believe that a better society begins with you and I. Hashtag, a better society begins with me. For more information, please log on to www.sepsaafrica.org. Please follow us on the various social media platforms: YouTube, SEPSA Talk, Facebook at SEPSA Africa, Instagram, SEPSA Africa, Twitter at SEPSA Africa. What a way to start this year's discussion of SEPSA Talk after being absent for more than a month. And for this year, we begin with international politics and international relations, looking at the case of Germany. And the topic we discuss today is Angela Merkel's exit, Olaf Scholz era. What does it mean for African politics and development? In September 2021, the world witnessed the end of an era in global politics as Germany's first female chancellor, Angela Merkel, left office after 16 years in power. In this episode of SEPSA Talk, what we do is that we look at what legacies defined Angela Merkel's era as Germany's chancellor. And then we also look at the future of Germany with Olaf Scholz. And then finally, we look at how this new form of leadership can, or what forms of lessons can be drawn from the leadership style of the country Germany in order for it to benefit the African politics and development. And to help us deal with such an important issue are our own Akosua Jima. She's currently a PhD researcher in law. She holds she's a postgraduate researcher at Lancaster University Law School. She holds LLM in diplomacy and international law from the Lancaster University, England. Her expertise lies in international human rights law, international refugee law, international policy and law, and then European policy and law. I must say it's always a pleasure to host you, and thank you for always making time. Welcome once again to SEPSA Talk, Akosua.
Thank you very much. As always, I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Great.
Welcome everybody on board.
Thank you. Great. And then our next guest is again our own Professor Opoku Entry. He's an associate professor of leadership and management at Viterbo University, La Crosse, Wisconsin. He's a leadership consultant, author, and civic educationist. He was PhD in business organizational leadership from the Indiana Wesleyan University, Indiana, USA. He holds MSc in business organizational leadership from the Mount St. Joseph University, Cincinnati, Ohio, USA, and he holds bachelor education in psychology from the University of Cape Coast, Ghana. And Master Associate, it's always a pleasure to host you, and thank you. Welcome once again to SEPSA Talk, Prof.
Thank you very much, Doc. Greetings to all your listeners and viewers.
Great, and we are so happy to be back again this year after so many people asking us what is happening to SEPSA Talk and when are we coming back. And our viewers and our Sepsarians, welcome once again to this year's first edition of SEPSA Talk. And I'm happy that I'm hosting Professor Opoku Entry and Mrs. Akosua Jima. If you have any questions concerning today's discussion, please don't forget to send them as we are streaming live on Facebook. So we'll start right away. And maybe I'll begin with you, Akosua, and clearly just some brief comments about what your views are, particularly about the new chancellor. Let's start from there, how the elections that took place last year in Germany occurred, just briefly your impression about their elections, and then finally they having a new chancellor.
Thank you for the question. And Professor, I forgot the name, Professor Enchi, it's very nice to meet you. My apologies for lack of focus. But anyway, it's kind of a bizarre question to ask me because Germany politics I'm not too familiar. And I had, sorry, I've indicated that to AK. However, I will say a brief comment. My understanding is there's a coalition between the three parties because it sounds to me none of the parties actually was successful in winning majority seats, so they had to form a coalition. So small parties together, and then they formed a coalition to form a government. And I understand they have a document of almost 200 pages, 178 pages forming this coalition in order to agree on certain things. And my understanding is they're distributing the party. In general, one of the things it represents is, my understanding is the majority of the people that are in this particular government, besides their leader right now, as a chancellor, the majority of the people in cabinet actually grew up outside of the communism state when Germany was divided. So they're not really, other than reading it in history and hearing it, they didn't actually experience it. Whereby Mrs. Merkel actually, well, even though was apparently born in Frankfurt or Hamburg, one of those places, but then was relocated because her father was a pastor, so was relocated in East Germany, so actually grew up in the communist side of it. So I always say our experiences actually shape the way we act, the way we behave, and the way we make decisions and what we actually pursue, because what affects us is what shapes us. So just in summary, in terms of what do I think of it, I mean, I kind of believe the fact that they didn't actually vote for majority also represents a divisiveness, or what can I say, lack of confidence in one particular party. I think the people are actually probably finding a new direction after 16 years of Mrs. Merkel's administration. So in my mind, it represents the fact that they need to work together and actually deliver for the people, because that's the way they voted. So in general, the summary is the majority of the people now are new generations compared to Mrs. Merkel's. And so definitely they have a different perspective. And my understanding is there is an ethnic Turkish person in cabinet, again, which is monumental because Germany and citizenship, which we're not going to go into today, Germany and citizenship is a very contentious issue. So it represents diversity. It represents probably a forward moving thing. It also represents a new perspective in a way. So that's where I would sort of end it.
Thank you very much for that wonderful brief summary. And I think key points are that of issues of distribution of power, because no party actually garnered the majority or the votes that is required for them to form a cabinet, so to say, and there's more of a coalition. And it's interesting that you also mentioned very interesting points. Sounds like the Ghanaian case, not entirely the same, but now there should be more consensus building in the case of Germany, as we've seen in the case of Ghana. Prof, you have any brief comments on what Akosua said, or generally how their elections went by last year?
I think German elections last year was very interesting. When I think about Germany, I think about 1884, when we had the Berlin Conference and Africa was divided. So the entire continent of Africa was divided with an idea from Chancellor Bismarck and French Prime Minister, his name is John Ferry. They decided in 1884 to come together and divide Africa. One day we'll go there about how Africa was divided and the interests of the Europeans, why they divided us. But it's all happened in Germany in 1884. Angela Merkel did a wonderful job. She was a champion of Africa for 16 years, but her party always had an approach of a piecemeal. She's very conservative. Then we had the red, gold, green, which is the traffic light coalition that took over from Angela Merkel after 16 years. The reason is that a lot of youth were, motivated to see that this coalition is more not of a conservative party, but they are more progressive and futuristic. And one example is they are trying to reduce the voting age to 16. They are also trying to legalize marijuana, and then they're talking about climate change, and gay and lesbians are also key on some of the issues that they're talking about. So you can see that the youth have been roped into this coalition, and the guy has a lot, Olaf has a lot to do, has been pulled here and there because we have Ukraine issues that is happening now. Unfortunately, the whole world is thinking about human lives, which is COVID. And because of that, every country priority now is COVID. So he will not be assessed now until after COVID, and then what happened after Ukraine.
Thank you very much for that brief summary. And I bring you in, Akosua, you realize that's pretty much the same points that Prof also said. Particularly, he stressed on one striking point about the inclusion of youth in the German politics now. And also, he already mentioned one legacy of Angela Merkel, which we would say more peaceful approach in dealing with things, as I understood him. For you also, what are some of the legacies that you think, identifies Angela Merkel's era?
Okay, I wasn't sure whether I unmuted myself. I think a few things stand out for her, or stand out as her legacy. First of all, she was apparently the first female chancellor, which is again very monumental. Also, she was actually probably the first person from the East side, actually, because she grew up in East Germany. She was the first person to be the chancellor as well. So she broke barriers for that reason. She also apparently actually changed the stereotype as to people describe women. Normally, because some people say they describe women defined by the 3 C's, like children, cooking, and church. So that's what normally people define women, traditional definition of women. We are supposed to be helping in the church and cooking and giving birth to children, whereby, and then the other part of it is women are not supposed to be leaders, and it's a very male-dominated field. But she actually, over the years, demonstrated she was much more calm than many of the leaders, i.e. Mr. Trump. She was able to stand up to many of these, and actually in a very calm manner. She was known as the consensus builder. She was a pragmatist, and she knew what she could achieve. She could relate to, apparently she spoke Russian fluently. Germany depends on Russia for gas, I think natural gas, because they're trying to wean themselves off coal as well as other fossil fuel. So they've been dependent on Russia as they sort of modernize to transition into more cleaner energy, such as wind, as well as solar, and I forgot the other, the newer hydrogen. So they're trying to transition over the years to shift from those dirty kind of fossil as well as coal into these areas. Whilst they're transitioning, they're relying a lot on natural gas supplied by Russia. So as you know, Russia and USA have traditionally never seen eye to eye. And they antagonize each other. But Mrs. Merkel actually played this careful role whereby Germany's interest was primary to her. So she had, she spoke Russian fluently, and apparently Mr. Putin also speaks German fluently. So they sort of worked through things that way. So essentially what I want to say is she was known as not only a pragmatist, but also a consensus builder, whereby some people like Putin, who are the international scenes, such as the UN Security Council, often Putin or Russia is isolated, West versus the East. But then Mrs. Merkel continued to work with Mr. Putin. In the same way, I believe Germany is the largest trade partner in terms of with China. Germany is apparently China's top trade partner, I guess. True. So again, because they depend on China for that, again, China, as you know, a lot of people criticize China for its human rights record. Again, Germany walked this fine line whereby Mrs. Merkel, again, prioritized the interests of Germany as opposed to international issues and human rights, and continue to work with China in order to promote Germany's business. So again, not only did he represent women and actually debunk the fact that they claim women are emotional and irrational and what have you, but over the years, she actually demonstrated she was much more calmer than many of the males. She stood up to the males. She actually dealt with at least four US presidents, about 4 or 5 prime ministers from Britain. And so many of these leaders, she dealt with all of them. And again, in a very calm manner, dealt with about 4 or 5 presidents from France. All of these male dominated. And normally at the European Union also, when she took the presidency, again, she promoted the European Union, European value, European unity, and achieved a lot. She's also known as one of the persons that actually viewed not only Germany, but Europe through a number of crises. One of them was the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, all through to around 2010. If it wasn't for her, Greece would have collapsed as a nation, because Greece was in so much debt that needed to be bailed out. Am I still on?
Yeah,
oh,
sure,
sorry,
yeah.
it disappeared, so I wasn't sure. So anyway, essentially, Greece was about to go bankrupt because they had over the years hid their deficit for so many years that before the European Union recognized Greece owed so much that they were going to be defaulting on their debt. Germany and the European Union, I mean, it was European Union matter, but I believe Mrs. Merkel at that time has always acted as a leader, and at that time, I'm not so sure whether she was a president of the European Union, because the European Union, the presidents, they rotate, right, every 6 months or every year or every few years, they kind of rotate who has to be the president. So then at that time, she made, again, another pragmatic decision in contrast to many of the other European leaders, and actually eventually made a difficult decision, even when her own country or nationals opposed bailing out Greece. And part of her reason was if she didn't do it and Greece collapsed, other weaker nations within the European Union would. And as you know, the European Union is also tied to the euro. And so if Greece and all these other weaker nations are using euro and one collapses, it would be a tsunami of nations collapsing. So she saved it. So that's one crisis. The other crisis was the refugee crisis in 2015. Which again, she kind of helped the European Union, helped the country sail through it. So there's a number of crises. The other one is the pandemic. During the pandemic, she again led the European Union to institute a number of other measures to help the weaker nations. So again, she is known as somebody who has actually helped the country go through a number of crises. European Union gone through a number of crises, also brought the world together, particularly when we had the US president where there was known to be a power vacuum internationally. She stepped in to also help. So, and these are some of their legacies. And as I said, she's known as the consensus builder. She's known as the pillar. When nobody got along, she was the one that would sit back and analyze the issue and bring everybody together and bring people that don't get along, leaders that don't get along, bring them together. She could also withstand people like Mr. Trump that would throw tantrums and actually agitate her. And then she would still remain calm and continue to work in even these difficult circumstances. So she's known, again, as a very strong leader, as a very calm leader, consensus builder, somebody who is able to actually, a good manager in politics and a pragmatist. And also like a glass kind of broke barriers in terms of being a woman and handling this. And also she won 4 elections and she had to leave at her own choosing. So she's got a lot of legacies to be proud of.
Thank you very much. And just one quick follow-up with her legacies that you talked about, and thanks for the summary also. With the issue of economic interest versus international or human rights interest, what do you say to those who, it's actually one of her criticisms, people criticize her actually for not paying attention to international relations or human rights interest other than the economic interest, with the examples that you gave with Russia and China. Do you find that as a fair criticism to her? People think is one of her bad legacies, if you like, briefly.
That's a good question. Yes, it's a criticism, but it is not unique. All the countries of the world, that's what they do. That's what USA does. All of the countries, even when they're claiming to claim human rights, US has Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay is no different than what China is doing with the Uyghurs, right? US actually camps migrants in Guantanamo Bay from Haiti. European Union, many of them are camping out people and taking them to prisons in Libya. So she's no different. The thing in international relations is human rights, they promote it, but I have to be very honest with you, I'm a champion of human rights myself. However, every state or in international relations, economic interest, political power, strategic interest is more important to them than human rights. Human rights, they use it. It's a European value, so to speak. But then, so yes, they criticize. She's criticized as being cozy with Mr. Putin as well as Mr. Xi. However, it is serving the German auto industry, serving the energy industry, and to her, that is more of a priority than human rights. And she doesn't want to annoy them too much, so then her economy suffers. So she wants to walk this fine line, and she has, to me, she had her own way of doing it. And she didn't want to go the hard route, and that's not her style. So fair, but not fair either. It's quite normal.
Well, points well made. Thank you very much. And I bring you in, Prof. Maybe for you, it would be interesting. I mean, of course, because you're a professor in leadership, and we've had a number of discussions with you regarding leadership, and your book, Servant Leadership, is doing well also. The question I wanted to ask you is, if you listen to Akosua and all the legacies that she mentions, it appears to me these, or maybe I should ask the question, what can we borrow from these leadership styles? Is there something that can be learned, from the leadership style of Merkel, given the African continent, particularly Ghana?
Definitely. I really like her style. She's proven that a woman single-handedly saved Europe. We know about the issue at Greece that Akosua talked about. We know Portugal, how she saved Portugal. She was really holding Europe. And her conservative approach really helped in dialoguing and negotiating with hardcore leaders, because there's still a Cold War between America and Russia, and we all know that. Germany is such a way that if you talk about comparative advantage, they have it in high-tech goods, such as chemicals, electronics, cars, and engineering. And then they also have efficient exchange of knowledge and expertise. These are areas that we lack in Africa. Her style of leadership, very humble. She was indeed a servant leader. I remember somebody asked her that, why is she not changing her clothes? Wearing the same clothes all the time. And she said that, because I'm a civil servant, I'm not a model. Such an intelligent response. She was serving her husband all these years, washing the clothes and, all these things. She was a wife. She was a mother. She cared about refugees. When the whole Europe was trying to push these Jordanians and other people away, she stepped in and said, no, I'm a mother. I can feel for them. So she was very empathetic to the plight of the world. Now, because Akosua has, raised all the ideas about her achievement with the advanced world, I want to talk about what she did for Africa, which is very important to me. Like I began saying, she championed the needs of Africa very much. The first one was that she supported the adoption of the African Renewable Energy Initiative. So you know that renewable energy is a big issue in Africa. We are crawling at that technology, and she supported that through the African Development Bank. Then she supported Africa with PPEs during the COVID-19. Even though they were struggling, like America was also struggling, they thought about Africa that we're not going to do it alone for ourselves. So our research and whatever we have to protect ourselves, all the vaccines, we're also going to share it with Africans. That was a great thing. Then Africa's economic growth through cooperation and counterpart funding. She really helped our counterpart funding. When I was in Ghana, I worked with the German Technical Corporation. And most of the small town water projects in the Volta region, Eastern region, Ashanti region. So if you go to Kitekrachi, if you go to Kwanta, if you go to Akachi, all these, I was the director for the Volta region. All these towns, huge money. Sometimes we spend millions. And the German government is paying 90% of the cost. The Ghana government is supposed to pay 5% of the cost, and then the community pays 5%. But we realized that the communities don't have money to pay the 5% of that millions of money. So we were taking it from the common fund for the 10% of Ghana government part. And Germany products and projects are everywhere in Africa. She really made sure that we benefited from that. Then she also advocated for a shift towards Africa building its own vaccine production capacities. So not only is she giving us that, but she was also encouraging us to build our own vaccine capacities. I think one of the problems of Africa is lack of research. We don't like researching. And because of that, anytime there's a problem, look at Ebola. We will wait till it happens again until we begin to look for vaccines. So once we have seen that this is happening, we can begin to do our own research and find cure to most of our own diseases, which are peculiar to Africans. Then she had that kind of enthusiasm for Africa. So most German companies are more active in Africa today than before because of her. When people want to invest, when African leaders come to the West, to Europe and America looking for investors, they don't trust them. There's corruption everywhere, leadership gap is there. And there are a lot of bureaucracies in, investing in Africa. But she encouraged, with her credibility, she encouraged Germans that, hey, go to Africa and invest there because it's a very good place to invest. So most of the investors we have in Africa now are from Germany, which is one of the things that she championed for. Then she also roped Germany into participating at African investment forums, and that was very unprecedented. The last one was held on December 1st to 3rd, 2021 in Abidjan. So if you look at a lot of the African investment forums, she was still looking for investors to come in and help. Then she also helped inspire global confidence in Africa. So from 2017 to 2019, German investment in Africa alone was $1.84 billion. So that is a great thing. You can tell that she really thought about Africa. And that means that her leadership was the right step in the right direction for Africa. I am hoping that Olaf will come and continue from where she left off.
Thank you very much, Professor Poku Entry. And I mean, to sum what you said, I'm sure a lot of people would agree is that she was indeed a servant leader, and she also had empathy. And this is something that we would need African leaders to borrow from her. And you already ended on that note with hoping that Olaf would continue with her legacy. I mean, it's still too very early to discuss about Olaf and maybe what his legacies would be, but so you are hoping that he would continue with that. I know I asked, of course, you had this question, but still, what do you then think about Germans who are also pushing that they expect Olaf to be tough on the Russia and the Ukraine issue? In such situations, then people would expect that at least Olaf would be a bit different from Angela, but you don't hope that this would be the case?
I don't think so, because their style of leadership are different. You know, Olaf is not on his own. Finance minister belonged to a different coalition. Foreign affairs belong to a different coalition. So when you have that kind of traffic like red, gold, green parties coming together and then forming a coalition, you need to be a consensus builder. And then you look at its focus. One is COVID that every country is grappling with. Been pulled over to US recently by Joe Biden because America have 3 bases in Germany alone. So we are trying, because Germany is an ally of America, and America sees that as Russia is stepping itself over Ukraine is going to create a lot of problems. But Germany is in a dicey situation. All the 80% of their natural gas is coming from Russia. And if Russia cut the supply of it, we are in the cold season now, winter. What happens to Germany? So in a new person, a lot of things are being thrown at him. He's being pulled over here and there. When America invites you to the White House to talk about tough issues like this, it means that they need your support. And like I said, America already have, our best ally is Germany, because we have 3 bases in Germany alone. And when you look at that, there are other elections going on in other places that America is keeping an eye on. But his focus, the reason why he won, was reducing the voting age to 16. He had the youth, you know, raising the of the youth, bringing them together about gays and lesbians, which is really a key factor now all over the world. He's also thinking about the economy, how Germans can take care of themselves, because they thought that Angela Merkel was really taking care of the whole Europe, and the Germans were not benefiting from their taxes. So there are a lot of things that Angela did as a conservative that a progressive person or a futuristic person who will be more aggressive in you know, tackling these issues might not focus on. And my feeling is that she might not be able to continue what Angela did for Africa as he's going to do for Europe and America.
Thank you very much, Professor Poku Entry. Akosua, what do you also say to that? Do you see Olaf bringing something new, or he might continue with the legacy of Angela Merkel?
The little I know is that they have similar managerial skills. However, they have different backgrounds, because Mrs. Merkel, as I said, I grew up in the East Side, and I was a female, and had her Christian values shaping her thoughts and stuff like that, her experience on the East Side. And then of course, Mrs. Merkel had a scientific background whereby she was known to often parse and analyze every situation, which people criticized her as it delayed things. And in the end, it cost a lot of money sometimes, people thought. Mr. Scholz apparently is a labor and employment lawyer. So again, different background, different perspective, different ideological orientation. So that definitely may shape him a little. My understanding is many of the policies he'll continue, because apparently during the campaign, he actually portrayed himself as he's more like Merkel than the others, right? Because apparently there was a quote that he said, "I am more like Merkel than the CDU leader," right? So he presented himself apparently even clasping his hands as Mrs. Merkel's signature clasping of the hand around the stomach to present himself as such. So part of his clout to win was to present himself that he possesses some of the qualities of Mrs. Merkel. Number two, he also was serving under Mrs. Merkel, apparently as the vice chancellor, as well as a finance minister at some point. Yeah. So I actually worked with her. So definitely, sometimes when you work with somebody under their leadership, you pick out some of their traits as well. Or there must be some similarities why you get along and why you were picked in the first place. So that could also go. So in summary, he has a similar style, however, ideologically different. The other things, apparently, where he might deviate, he may carry on many of the foreign policies in general. However, the areas where I heard he might differ would be his relationship to China, as well as Russia. And then the other thing is his Germany's dependence.
You muted yourself, Akosia. No, it's not.
Oh, sorry about that. What was I saying? So his relationship, apparently there are some 3 R's. One professor summarized what they anticipate to see that they call 3 R's. Reassess their relationship with China and Russia, reevaluate their relationship with USA and others, and there was another re-examine something. So there was the 3 R's. So essentially, he's going to relook at some of these international relationships, particularly where Mrs. Merkel was criticized. My observation is the areas where Mrs. Merkel was criticized, for example, social policies. Prof. Enchi mentioned the progressive things. She was criticized for that. Things about not doing too much for the safety net, the incomes, low income, minimum wage, gays and lesbians didn't seem to have done so much. So social policy domestically, she was criticized. It sounds to me this government, so that's one of their aims. And then of course, issues with Russia, human rights globally, issues with China, apparently they will reevaluate. However, I believe Mr. Scholz is also very, very aware and very realistic that they still depend, they have a huge energy dependence on Russia. So apparently in the meantime, they will maintain it. In terms of Russia, China, what they wanted to re-examine is the 5G. Apparently, he's worried about privacy as well as data security. So national security, data privacy. So that because of that, China's investment in the 5G is a concern to him. And so that is what they're going to be reevaluating. And again, I would agree with Prof that because it's a 3-way party, normally everything has to be a little bit, when it's democracy and when it's 3-way and when it's that diverse, that means you don't get to have your way because then you have to work with the other parties. And as I said before, apparently they have 170 something pages of contract or agreement, how they're going to be working together. So I believe they have to be moderate. Whatever everybody's coming with, they have to moderate it to find that middle ground. But overall, I would say that in general, mostly foreign policies don't change very much with a change in government. They may change just a little bit, tweak here and there, but they don't change very much because Germany's national interest, no matter what, it's gonna come first above everything.
Thank you very much, Akosia, Jimai. Thank you very much, Professor Pukwentri. So if I put the two of you, your submissions together, then it suggests that he might not change too much. He would probably only change in areas where Angela was criticized. For example, taking care of the economy of Germany more, expanding the social policies, and also maybe being strategic and tactical with their dealings with countries like Russia and China. Thank you very much. If you are just joining us today, we are having a discussion around the exit of Angela Merkel and the new Chancellor of Germany and what Africa seeks to gain from that forms of leadership that we have. A few messages on Facebook, and then I would allow a German friend who is right here on Zoom with us. He would want to also share 1 or 2 views concerning what he has heard so far. So one from KB Bosman says, Africa needs such partnership. And I would come to you, Akosia and Prof, after the submission by our colleague here, to really look at how African leaders should position themselves, particularly Ghana, to be able to be in partnership with the current new government of Germany in order to achieve benefits. So basically, someone calling for partnership here, what is expected of our leaders to do in order to engage in a fruitful and a successful partnership. A.K. Mensah says Angela Merkel is criticized as someone and a leader who lacked a strategic vision. Are these critiques germane and founded? I don't know whether you would want to say something about it, even though I would say no. it's not germane and it's not founded. Then one again from AK Mensa says, do you find Olaf to be so cool and slow for a leader of Germany? Then finally, I read one last message from Braco Nanedu says, Germany is more of economic power than economic and political power. Germany's lack of energy resources has reduced its influence in European affairs. In terms of Africa, Germany doesn't see Africa the way China, Russia, France, and UK see Africa, i.e. as economic important to merit serious attention. So maybe Akosua, you go with AK's first question quickly. The criticism of Angela lacking strategic vision, what's your take on that? And then Prof, you find Olaf's style to be too slow for Germany or not? Maybe I'll start with you, Akosua.
Well, yes, it's a well-known criticism, because apparently she positioned Germany, and mind you, she actually advanced Germany's economy, picked it up from a place where Germany was in trouble, and actually lifted Germany's image and economy so much. The criticism about no vision, it is again well-known. Part of the reason is they said that she positioned Germany in a way that made the other Europeans difficult to actually counter Germany. So you don't quite know the direction she's going. And people also found her to sometimes be quite ad hoc. She also sometimes frustrated the other Europeans. For example, when she took in the refugees, 1 million, the Europeans and the rest of the Europeans at that time had decided to close their borders. And then when she did that, it upset them, because then she made them look bad. So then all of a sudden UK, France, who were the other big countries, were trying to emulate it. And then her own people weren't happy with it. And then so with the Greece issue, again, left to the rest of them, they would have allowed Greece to maybe collapse or something. So people think the way she sort of also related to China and Russia was, it's almost like in a way seen as selfish. I mean, even though that's not the word to use, but that's my implication of the way she's criticized, that it made it difficult for the rest of the other European countries to position themselves around the world. So, I mean, when people say that she didn't have the strategic vision, I think normally that's what I see, but I don't know whether in terms of Germany, positioning Germany vision-wise, I don't know. Her style was to deal with the issues here and now, short-term goals, and then she works on the long-term goal. So she tries to work to achieve what is the crisis, deal with it, hoping that she can work through the long term. So then she's not a person that could just take the decision with the hope that she dealt with it for 30 years, but she's dealing with it. Case in point, lastly, her climate change law was struck down many, many times at the German Constitutional Court, many times. The reason it was seen as not enough, what she did was she actually, in terms of targets and emission, she projected it to the extent that at the end of the 30 years, that's where the target is gonna hit people most. So the Constitutional Court argued that she's putting more burden on future people, that she's sort of shifting it to future people. So again, that could build into lack of vision as well. And that particular law has been struck down by the courts many, many times for similar reasons.
Interesting one there. Thank you very much, Akosua. Prof,
Olaf, yeah, you talked about coolness. Our elders say that it's the cold water that drowns people, not the hot one. So if a cool person, it's really great. To work under Angela for 16 years, be her vice, be the finance minister, and still be cool, and be able to form a coalition with other people, go into agreement with that kind of voluminous, documents, you need to have that kind of coolness. And I think that that is very important in modern day leadership, because those who are narcissists, where everything settles on them, like we all know, those people don't last in leadership. But those who have cool heads and are able to reason through issues are the kind of leaders that we are looking for. I know that Africa, we have a big problem. We have currently 100 billion a year infrastructure investment gap. I keep saying about Africa, because if you have 100 billion infrastructure development gap, then we need development partners who will help us fix our infrastructures. So we have to strengthen our cooperation with Germany because they have a way of helping us, especially in car and engineering areas. And then, production of high-tech goods. We need those in Africa, and that is why we need to help this. Then we've also seen current coup d'etats in Africa, unprecedented. Just 2022 alone, we've seen 3 of the coup d'etat. This means that we need to talk about peace building because Germany already have that kind of relationship with Ghana and the rest of Africa, and we need to strengthen that. We also I've talked about development, and then migration is also one of the issues that we need to strengthen areas with them, and then working with African partners. So our partners, we want Olaf to be working with us in his leadership style, and then more cooperation with civic society. So these are areas that we need to work with him: peace building, development, migration, working with African partners, and then more cooperation with civil society.
Thank you very much, Professor Poku-Antwi, that you have highlighted some of the things that we need to do as a continent in terms of our partnership with Germany. And when you mentioned the coup d'etat, I must say that we had a discussion, and Akosua was present with one other guy, and correct me, Akosua, if I'm wrong, I remember she predicted that if things are not done well, we would see more coups. And it's happening, and we hope that we're able to get a stop to that. So Robin, if you can hear me and you are ready, you wanted to, so Robin is a colleague here, is a PhD student also here in Germany, and he's a German and would want to add a few things to what has been said here already. Welcome to CEPSA Talk, Robin.
Yeah, hello.
Great.
Hello. Should I open my video or?
Yes.
Right, okay, cool. It's a bit dark here, sorry. My light broke.
That's fine.
Sorry, just to my face.
So good to have you, and yeah, let's hear you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the interesting conversation. I make a lot of notes, but I want to just break down some points I wanted to say. First of all, thank you for having that topic. It's really interesting to see. For me, as a German, and also someone who always try to keep up with the politics, it's always really interesting to talk with non-German people about German politics, especially from African countries, because I always had the impression that Merkel, the 16 years she had a really positive standing, and also the way how she leads the country. And maybe it's also that Germans maybe criticize on a really high standard, because I think we don't have so much problem with corruption and these things. But I think I try not so much to tell about my opinion, more what I think, how German thinks. First of all, 16 years leading a country in a democracy, I think is not so healthy. It's a long time. So it's also a problem that some people who grown up with Angela Merkel, they don't know someone else. So first of all, this, whatever you think about it, I think 16 years is just too much in a working democracy. Second of all, I think you also talked about that. A lot of people think Angela Merkel wasn't a real leader of the country. I think a lot of people missing that she don't have any visions about the country. It's also, you said it also, she's more administrating the country than designing something for the future. And also the things that you also talked about, like with the refugee crisis or with Greece, I think there's always like two sides of it, because a lot of other parties always criticized the Conservative Party, even 20 years ago, that something like a migration crisis can happen and you have to deal something with it, that it's not happening. You have to help African countries or wherever the crisis is to maybe deal it another way. So, and Angela Merkel only dealt with the situation that she maybe was also part of creating it. So this is also a thing that what people don't like is she just managed the problem, but not the, only with the result, but not with the problem. And also with the Greek thing. I mean, at the end, I also just Googling it a little bit, Germany earned 2.6 billion euros with that thing with Greek, with the credit, because they have to pay it back. So we make a lot of money with this. So it's always like two sides. Like Germany make the most money out of this problem with Greek because we gave them the credit and they have to pay back more, and they suffer from that, and we want the money. So this is also like the another side of it. I just wanted to say, and So sorry, I don't want to take a monologue. I was just reading a little bit about the new government and how their foreign policies are maybe for African countries or also for all foreign countries. There's not so much yet. I think everything is dominating by COVID for sure. But what I see is that it says that a lot of things will continue. Like with Merkel, I think, because Olaf Scholz is in the tradition of Angela Merkel for sure. But I see criticism of it because a lot of people in Germany also criticize, especially the development help of Germany, also for African countries, that it's more about the German interests in African countries and not what is helping African countries to be not depending on others. Like also, I think someone else said something, Germany is not like China. They don't see maybe the potential of Africa. That's definitely true, but I'm also happy that Germany is not like China, because China, I think, have not so much interest to have a strong Africa or a strong African Union. They just have economic interests. And I would hope that also the German government would change their politics, especially in Africa, to help the African Union to get not dependent on their own help. And I don't see that yet, because I think there's also strong economic interest from Germany in that. There are a lot of other points I would say, but I think I just want to break down to that main points. Yeah. But thank you. Just some points.
Thank you very much, Robin, and thanks for emphasizing that Germans have high standards of criticisms. I know AK will believe and laugh with this, but this is very
All advanced countries are like that.
Yeah.
They demand more from their leaders. Africa is different. We don't demand more from our leaders.
And it's something we really also need. And talking about a message from Braco, who says Germany is an inward-looking country. It sees its future in Europe rather than the rest of the world. I think it was also what you were saying. And thank you very much again, Robin. And very soon to end the show, Akosua, I think Prof already started the discussion around what African leaders can do or should do in order to have a successful or a fruitful partnership with Germans. What would you also add to that moving forward? Given how the German politics is, even though we are not experts and we've not gone in depth into it, but what are a few things that you would suggest for African leaders to pay particular attention to in their partnership with German leadership?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say, Robin, thank you very much for raising some important issues. The refugee crisis, as you said, it's true. Yes, she was praised internationally, but she was criticized at home and within the European Union, because again, the European Union that year between 2015 and 2016 had over 1 million refugees. And then the crisis is ongoing. That said, after she took the people, what they did was to strike a deal with Turkey as well as Libya in order to keep them all in detention centers. So now more than 3-point-something million refugees are stuck in Turkey, whereby Libya, they're giving money to Libya to actually grab the people from the sea and keep them in Libya detention centers, where people are tortured and all kinds of horrible things are happening to them. In terms of the crisis, again, same. Even though they bailed Greece, yes, Greece is going to be indebted for a long time. However, the other alternative could have been worse, because Greece had mismanaged its own economy to the extent that it was about to collapse. And I think the rest of it would have actually dragged the rest of the European Union alongside, more so because they use the same currency. All right, so thank you for that contribution. It is actually very, very useful and quite balanced as well. In terms of your question, Evans, about what should African countries do? One thing we should all recognize, we shouldn't be naive. When, as Robin said, when France or Germany or UK or even Canada, when they visit, or USA, when they visit and they're playing drums with us, they're presenting themselves. I think African countries and their citizens are not very analytical. They see the photo ops as it's all nice. Germany is nice. They brought us this. But as Robin said, each of these countries, everything they do, economic interest is prime. So even right now, when you even search about Germany's foreign policy, you don't see anything about Africa. It's only when you're interested and we want to dig down, because Africa is really not their priority. Their priorities are the big powers. Big powers, the countries that make strategic interest, that economic interest. So in this particular case, yes, USA, because USA is a dominant or influential country. Other countries are Russia, China, and the other players that would actually could undo them. So countries that could actually do bad stuff to them or they could gain from, those are their priorities. For Africa, when they're going there, it's just a little bit of appeasement to sometimes look a little good. So I don't think we should be too deceived by thinking they're nice to us, we're gonna benefit, or when they build something, it's all about us. It is because Germany wants something, okay? If they establish their auto industry, it's because they either wanna sell the part, because Germany is one of the top exporters of auto products and other machines to Ghana, right? So it's a market to them. So yes, in return to that, they do something little to, and then we're thinking, oh, they're so nice to us. So in summary, one thing African countries must learn is each individual country pursues their own national interest. It is pride, no matter how nice they are with you, and it is like that in relation to USA versus Canada, Canada versus USA, every country, China, their national interest, in this case, economic, strategic, political, that is what is important. And then military-wise, because that gives them more power to gain more competitive advantage. So, but African countries, I don't know whether they understand global politics very well. It's the photo ops we like. So what should they learn? They should figure out what is it that they can gain from Germany, what is it that they can benefit from Germany, and actually also, what is it that Germany actually needs that Ghana, for example, probably has a competitive advantage to provide. In that particular case, that's your leverage for negotiation. Because you have a better, because Germany takes Guinean cocoa and other things, and Cote d'Ivoire is our other competitor. So that if that Germany really needs that, then that's what you're going to use to actually get what you need from Germany in order to benefit. It's almost like a battle sim. You negotiate with your strongest suit where you have monopoly. But we shouldn't be blinded thinking they like us, they parade, they like us. They should do the same to Strongs, to UK. What is it that it's only us that can deliver to UK? Use that to bargain. And what is it that we really, really need? That it's UK that can best provide for us. So that's how they should use to relate that the thing we can sell better about ourselves, we should present that to the new leader, because a lot of the other African countries would be competing through the Germany Compact with Africa that Mrs. Merkel created. So yes, there are so many other countries that may also be the favorite or that Germany may have interest in. So because of that, we should seek our own area.
You muted. If you please unmute.
Sorry. So in summary, what I want to say is every country, even if you're little, we need to be working towards self-help. We need to wean ourselves off that aid and charity, and Germany will help us, UK will help. No, they're not. It's been years, they're not helping, okay? They're there for their interest, so we should get that. What we should do is to also begin to leverage some power by figuring out where is our strongest side that we can actually, what is it that we can give Germany, that USA can give Germany, China can give Germany, and how do we sell that to the new leader to present ourselves, for example, that we're a different African country. We are now no longer dependent on aid, or even if they're coming to help us with something, yes, we can show them the buck for their money, like we can show them something. So what is it? And put it together. So when we meet the leader, they know what we're talking about. We need to, it's almost like looking for a job. we need to present ourselves why we should be chosen for a particular investment. And that investment should not be Germany determining to bring something they think they need somewhere to sell it. We should determine what is it that we need and also meet Germany that way and present it. Because maybe we need to build our own auto industry, not having Germany sell VWs and BMWs to us. Because how do you develop your own auto industry and become self-reliant?
Right.
So that's where
Great.
I would probably end it. And again, the coup and stuff, I think Germany already has a plan for peace building. Again, that's they're already sponsoring. They're one of the biggest sponsors of the Kofi Annan peacekeeping school. I think education and those ones, again, where we can get in from Germany, we should actually take advantage of it. But then we should also be productive and give out better outcomes and sell better products about us to also get more money from it to be able to go towards self-help and self-reliance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akosua. Well said. So we need actually to identify our competitive advantage and leverage that to enhance our negotiations with the developed countries. Prof, your final words, and then I allow Robin also to say something. And then
yes, my final words start from the roots, which is during the colonial era, education was a tool for colonization and assimilation by excellence. That is from a cultural standpoint. So Europeans taught Africans their history, their laws, and their values. And so Africans unwillingly adopted the culture of Europeans. If somebody said that we are, some countries are inward, of course, every country is inward. Trump talked about, making America great. And he had over 62 to 70% of people following him because every country wants to be great. So Akosua talked about that competitive advantage. I think that the frustration in Africa is that even the G7, we're talking about 7 countries that have the veto powers at the UN. There's a single African country that is part of that. We don't even have a veto power. But if you talk about Africa, we are the second largest continent in the world. Look at our population. And yet, when it comes to the discussion table, our voice is very low. That is something that we should work on. So there's a lot of frustration everywhere, but I believe that frustration is the beginning of change. And the most important thing is to quote what Paul Kagame, one of the African leaders, said. He said that I rather argue that we need to mobilize the right mindset rather than more funding. After all, in Africa, we have everything we need in real terms. So depending on aid is not going to help us. We have everything that we need. All we need is the right mindset. If you look at Germany policies now, they even have, I listened to Minister Heiko Maas, Foreign Affairs Minister Heiko Maas, and then I also listened to one professor from Leipzig University. His name is Robert Kappa. He said that now they even have a policy for Africa education. So if Germany have a policy for African education, it means that they are looking at how we are training, our people. So when they realize that we are training engineers and they need engineers, where do they come to? Africa. Now we have 65% of our population in Africa under the age of 35. So when we talk about the youthful population in the world, they are in Africa. When America and Japan and Europe is looking for youthful population to come and work for them, of course, that's what they look for. When you win the lottery, it's not everybody that they give the visa to, the green card to. They give it to those who are educated because those are the people they need. So they have a policy for Africa, and that is their interest. Every country have their interest. So what is our interest? Our interest is to make money, build houses and cars, and then steal the money, corruption. And these are not interests that is helping our people. I want to know, and I want to urge African youth that they should all rise up and fight for the interests of Africa as well. I was doing a research, and I don't know if this is the right platform to share. And I saw the CIA.com, CIA website. They know the cocoa production of Ghana every year. They know the cocoa production of Cote d'Ivoire. They know all the coffee, everything in Africa. They know more than we know. And then they called me and said, no, you can't do that research. I said, why? They said, using our data. I said, yes, I want to use the facts. They said, no, you can't do that. You know why? If America or Germany is giving you money to have free cocoa spraying, you think it's free money. In the end, you're going to have abundant harvest of cocoa. you are going to dry them and put them into jute sacks and then carry them in their raw state to their country. They will give you any price they want. Haven't they got their money back? That's what they do with Africa. So we have all the resources, like Kagame said, the right mind, the leadership to turn these resources around is our problem. Do you think if we have every cocoa district, cocoa producing or cocoa growing district in Ghana with a chocolate factory, is that going to provide employment for us? And can't we add value to it so that we can give it to other countries? Even if you go to the world trade, where we all trade, and you know, the problem is that even trade is skewed in the interest of the rich countries. Determine the price of everything. So yes, every country is going to be inward. They are going to make their country great. Germany is talking about a minimum wage, raising it to 12 euro an hour. People are looking for ways so that they can have leverage and then enjoy life. But we are looking for ways that we can write proposals that look like we are dying, we are living on trees, so that these people will send us money and then we share. That kind of old mentality is not going to help Africa. We should stop depending and relying on others and then look within. God has given all the resources. If you look at the document that I talk about, King Leopold II, the king of Belgium, said that when they were sharing Africa, he said that Congo is his own property. Congo is his own property. So yes, they divided Africa to make it their own property, economic-wise, cultural-wise, everything, their language, everything to pose on that. The time has come for the youth who are now educated to sit down and say that, what can we do for ourselves so that we cannot depend on anybody? And then like Akosia said, what do we bring on board so that at the discussion table, Africa will point out that this is what we do, this is what we need us on the discussion table, and then they will respect us. I go to most of the UN meetings, you know, conferences, and when an African leader stands to talk, nobody listens to them. They are coming to beg for money. Even our respect at a global level is at stake because we are not able to do things for ourselves. And I go to leadership conference, they will ask me, you know, tell us of any African country that has been successful, that we not built. We should begin to make ourselves successful so that we can boast about it and the world will welcome us with open arms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Poku Entry. Well said. So pretty much buttressing what Akosia also already said. And I also like one statement you said, frustration is the beginning of change. It is my prayer that African youth will be frustrated so that we'll begin to cause change in Africa. Robin, your final words.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, my head is full of thoughts right now. I love that. Thank you so much for that. One short thing I want to say. I don't want to be too controversial because I'm not an expert for African politics and societies, but I sometimes think China could learn from China. Africa could learn from China, actually, because China was a country that was always invaded, always separated from other countries, a lot of different minorities together. And at one point, there was able, I mean, take the Uyghurs, a lot of human rights violation on the sides for sure, but they was able to unite and to find a Chinese way of doing this and not to copy what the West is doing and doing their Chinese way, trying to find out what is working for China. And sometimes I think, when I look at Africa, sometimes, because I'm not the expert, I think, wow, there's so many resources, so many young people. It's all on the table, and because I don't understand it, sometimes there's everything there. And when I talk with friends from African countries, sometimes they also tell me they always look what is happening in Africa and in Europe. And sometimes you have to find maybe the African way of doing things and unite, because Germany, without the European Union, you wouldn't be so big, you know, because we export everything. And yeah, and I always think the African Union and a strong unity is the key for everything. And so I think Africa could learn from China from that, I think.
Thank you very much, that Africa should be Africa. And some last messages, then we end the show. One from A.K. Mensah Okatechi, watching A.K. Mensah excellent points from Akosia, A.K. Mensah excellent from Prof. Okatechi says the West don't show interest in Africa. We talked about this until they have a specific interest in Africa, because you have mentioned that. And he says frustration is the beginning of a change, a profound statement. I do agree. So thank you very much, Professor Poku. Thank you very much, Akosia Jima. And thanks, Robin, for passing through. Thank you, A.K. Mensah, for producing the show. And those of you who also joined us with your messages on Facebook, we're grateful. We would surely upload this video on YouTube, and so watch out. And it's our hope that indeed Africa would not be naive. Africa should be analytical. And then, as Prof has also said, quoting Paul Kagame, we need to start, building our mindsets, and we need to start and empowering our youth so that we'll be able to identify where we can get our competitive advantage in order to leverage power when we get to the negotiation table. Thank you very much. I am Evans Sapia Kisi. Hopefully we meet again next week for another topic on SEPSA Talk. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.